He was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We observed his glory, the glory as the one and only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. He said, I am a voice of one crying out in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, just as Isaiah the prophet said. He said, truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. All those years later, we can't tell you the song titles or the individual names of the players, or even how many were on stage. But we can and will enthusiastically describe the impact their music had on us. And if you give us an excuse to mention those musicians and that performance, we always take it. John was affected by Jesus to an extent that his whole life and death were centered on Jesus. Our job is to pay attention. Our job is to be so deeply grateful that we can't stop ourselves from sharing the experience of God in whatever way we can. So this makes me think of this. Let me explain for you. So let me explain that to you, what I mean there. 1 year I was at teen camp, not sure of the exact year, but Jacob Jester was our pastor for the week. Jacob Jester was our pastor for the week at teen camp. He was fabulous. And I don't remember what night he did it, but he was pacing back and forth on stage. And he said that God told him to do something. And he said, sitting there in my dorm, begging God, how am I going to tell them this? Why would they do this? Asking God why I had to do this. And he said, I sat there and was like, they won't do it. Okay, if you're telling me to do it, I'll do it. But I don't think they're going to do it. He said, how am I going to get a bunch of teenagers to do that? Then he begins to explain that God told him to have these teenagers stand up one at a time and shout out their sin. What is holding them back from fully giving themselves to God? Who are they not forgiving? What is controlling their lives? What has a hold on them that they can't overcome? And he said, I want you, one at a time, to stand up, shout out your sin, and come to the altar. Sounds simple, right? Except it's a room full of teenagers. And he was like, God, it's a room full of teenagers. And God was like, I'm telling you, tell them to do this. So he says, so here I am, telling you to stand up and shout out your sin. And the whole place got quiet. And a kid on the far left side of the auditorium, in that sanctuary, that kid stood up. It was a guy. I don't know his name, but he stood up and he asked God to forgive him for the hate he had for his father. And then he went to the altar and he bawled. And he bawled. And one at a time, slowly but surely, another teen would stand up and shout out their sin. And then, from up on stage, Jacob Jester says, counselors, this is for you as well. I want to see some of you stand up and take the leap like these teenagers are. And one at a time, a counselor here, a counselor there. And this went on for a few minutes. And then he said, if you're sitting there in your seat and you are sobbing or you are unable to speak because what holds you back is so strong and you're not sure what to do about it, but you know if you stood up and opened your mouth, nothing would come out, then I want you to make your way to this altar. And the altar's flooded with people. And it's the most memorable night of my entire camp experience. And I just felt like I should share that with you. If something is holding you back from fully giving yourself to God, no matter what it is, I encourage you to let go and let God.